so this is probably something that people that would be working in like a home studio environment would need to know, is like providing artists certain things. With everybody that you've worked with, like what is the average like backing track stem count looking like?
So for like more rock oriented bands with tracks, I usually see.
Welcome back to the Home Studio Hangout podcast, and I am super excited to bring to you my conversation with my really great friend, Chris Bowman. Chris has been working with bands like Beach Weather and artists like Carter Vale, running front of house on tour, setting up incredible sounding shows anywhere from 1,000-cap venues to arenas. And we have him on today to talk about some things like what to do when you're growing in this area, how to get started in the front of house world, the live music world, and what are some things that he's learning in the live world that is translating into things that he's trying out in a studio environment. Different mixing techniques, different routing techniques, stuff like that. And we hope that you super enjoy this episode with my man, Chris Bowman. Welcome back to the Home Studio Hangout podcast. I'm your host, Drew, here with the big homie himself, Mr. Chris Bowman. And
What is up?
And a little friend.
Little meow meow. Please go away.
Dude, Chris, super pumped to have you back on the podcast. It's been a minute.
It has been a minute, dude. I'm happy to be back.
Even outside of the podcast time, like we haven't talked in a while. It's been like at least a couple months. But in podcast terms, we are currently on, as of this today, we've released 142 episodes, and you were episodes, what did I say,
62?
Yeah.
Man, you've been very busy, and I've also been very busy, just not in podcast times.
Just in a different, but it is a nice, like, because if we release an episode a week, that's a good, like, span of time to see what's happened. That's crazy, right?
Oh yeah, dude, big time.
For people that want to know more about Chris and things that we're just not going to talk about today because we've already talked about it a lot, you can go check out that episode. I'll make sure I link it or put it somewhere in the place. But you can check it out. We talk about a lot about how me and Chris got to know each other and big homie times and all that kind of stuff. But last time, Chris, so this will be a fun jog down memory lane for you. Last time we did this podcast, you were in a pool, also in Florida.
I do remember that.
And you were on the road with the word alive.
It was like a day off on the Pop Evil tour.
Yep, and you were about to do, I think you ran for Silent Planet and the word alive at that festival that you were at in Florida. I think it was Rockfest maybe or something.
That would have been Heart Support. August Burns Red Festival.
Yes, that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. It's been a minute, right?
Holy cow.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, let me just date that real quick for you, because that was what happened at episode 62. It was the day before you were doing that.
Dude, yeah, that weekend too, I did monitors for Under Oath.
Yep.
And the Ghost Inside. It was a very busy weekend.
Very busy weekend. A lot's happened since then. You've actually fully shifted genres like twice, I think, at this point.
Yeah. Man, that's wild.
You've gone on so many tours. You've gone on the Willie Nelson tour since then. That was really cool. A lot of Beach Weather stuff. The
Beach Weather's the homies.
The Carter Vale stuff with Young Gravy, and yeah, tons of other things. Also a banger. Yeah, tons of other things that I think it would be fun for you to just like run through things that you've probably done since then.
Since I was in the pool?
Yeah, since you were in the pool, about get ready to run front of house for the word alive at Heart Support.
Yeah.
Rock Support. Basically the same thing.
Yeah. So let's see. Oh, dude. So like that was actually like pre my first beach weather
It
dates.
was. You had it right.
Like
You hadn't worked for Beach Weather at all at that point.
I had like just started getting ready to do shows with them. So since then, with beach weather, I've done um, a support tour with Lovely the Band. We supported a band called The Beaches in Canada.
That's not confusing.
Yeah, beach weather and the beaches. Totally not confusing at
Yeah,
all.
yeah, yeah.
We did a beach weather headliner last spring, and then like a bunch of festival stuff. I also dipped into pop with Alexander Stewart. We did like a full U.S. run, full Europe run. Um, man, what else did I do?
The girl that you were on with the Willie Nelson tour and the John Mellencamp
Brit-
tour.
Brittany Spencer.
Yeah,
That was a ton of fun on Outlaw Festival. That was like my first taste of
big time.
arenas and
Yeah,
like giant amphitheaters,
yeah.
that was a blast. And then yeah, literally like got done with that and was on the road supporting Young Gravy for like 2 months with Carter Vale.
Mm-hmm.
And then Carter did his own headline run. He actually just finished a headline run in Europe while I was out here with Wallows and Deb Never.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, been
You've been literally across the world like
I've
four
been
times.
across the world.
Like four times since we talked.
Dude. I don't even it's crazy. I don't really think about it like it's like I do the thing and then
you just go
I
to the next
do
thing and you just
the
go to the
next
next
thing.
thing. Yeah.
I have done quite a bit of traveling over the past couple of years, and I had the opportunity to be in some really amazing venues and meet a ton of cool artists, more awesome production people. It's been a lot of fun, man.
Well, and we're gonna talk about some things that you've done maybe and changed, and you've probably had you've had a million revelations. I think we've talked about just personally, like on doing different stuff on the mixing side and the way that you approach tour and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot to dig into, but I just wanted to take a minute for you to recount all that, because I know it's a really cool snapshot for you to just be like, wow, I really did the thing in the last like year and a half, like 2 years.
I'm currently doing the thing.
Yep.
That's awesome.
You're off the road from doing the thing currently, but yeah.
I literally just got home and hopped on this. I finished in Fort Lauderdale last night, got on the road at 11 o'clock at night, and drove all the way here so I can spend some time with you, my dude.
It is much appreciated always. Well, dude, I think where we can start is well, one, it's been really cool to see everything that you've been doing so far, and it's really cool to see like from the beginning of you doing an absolutely absurd amount of dates to still doing an absolutely absurd amount of dates, but just like getting paid better for it. and not having to sleep in a 15 passenger.
Yeah, that is the goal. I remember the first tour that I took was 700 a week, and now it is not 700 a week.
Yeah.
So
well, and now the difference is, and I would maybe this is a place we could start. So before I'm sure you had some views on what you thought touring was like and running from the house was like and all that kind of stuff. So now I think you've almost done arguably about double the amount of dates since the first time we've talked.
Mm-hmm.
What is the things that stick out to you the most that have changed from you between now and then? Just like the big things that maybe are like, oh, this one was a thing that, it can be on the mixing side, it can be on the touring side, it can be whichever.
Um, I feel like I used to always try to, like, if we're just talking about like mixing or whatever,
Sure.
I I feel like I always tried to make every system sound the same, and I finally got to a point where I realized like I just have to work with what I have. Like, um, things are not always going to be the exact way that I want for them to sound, and instead of like trying to like really push and pull a system into like a place where it might not want to actually go,
Mm-hmm.
I've sort of just started leaning into like, here are all of the things that I have available to me, and I'm going to just make my mix sound as good as possible on this, instead of like forcing like a JBL rig to try to sound like an L Acoustics K2 rig, which
Yeah.
are two totally different things. Definitely getting more into the less is more approach
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to mixing. And I feel like that just helps a lot with consistency
Sure.
overall.
How are you going about trying to make like the most? Because moving from room to room, and depending on whether you're outside or inside, or what kind of room it is, can also play a massive factor. But like, what in your mind is the easiest way for you to get the most, like, okay, I understand what I'm hearing, and this is why I'm making these moves, because they're going to be pretty different from place to place.
For sure. So, and I mean, I don't know. I feel like this might go against what a lot of other engineers do, but I feel like listening to test tracks on a PA, I've kind of stopped doing that. And I know it sounds weird, but I've been, instead of like listening to, you know, doing it right, which I used to do all the time across every
Yeah, yeah.
system. I've just gotten to a point where I record all of my shows, and I just listen to my last mix virtually on the new rig, and from there I'm able to tell, oh, okay, here's what I need to do today to make this sound like yesterday, which was, hopefully good.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen more of that be more common. I don't know. Maybe that's just me and I'm not as in the regular like you are, watching other front of house guys do their thing. But I do feel like when I've been at a sound check, or I did that tour with James last year,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah,
um doing some pretty cool rooms there, and like I feel like Dylan's camp pretty much just ran like they didn't check. I mean, he did like a general like check off a playlist, but not that he only did play like two songs just to kind of hear what the room was going to be, and then immediately swapped over to checking based off the previous night's show.
yeah. I think virtual sound checks are they're very informative, and like not only does it help you figure out what the room is going to be like today, but it also allows you to listen to what you did wrong last night and fix it for tonight.
Yeah. What do you find? What do you find that you're tweaking the most between from room to room?
Um, Typically it's like a shelf on a vocal. Like some PAs have a lot of like high end that is maybe a little too much. So sometimes you'll cut it a little bit, and then you get into a room where it's like a little bit more balanced, and you're like, oh, my vocals sound kind of dark or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want them to sound like this. So, yeah, really just like adjusting shelves on the top and bottom, and usually that's really it. If I'm inside, I'm like listening to how the mids and high mids are reacting in the room. And then I'm also keeping in mind that, like, oh, once there's people in here, all of this weird reflection stuff that I'm hearing is going to go away. So,
Yeah.
like, learning to ignore stuff that sounds not great in empty rooms, knowing that, like, it will be better once We just need to get the bodies in there, man.
Yeah.
I know everybody says
It,
that,
it's
and
literally, it
it's very
literally is
true.
so true. And
Yeah.
like even the couple of dates we played last year, uh, dude, it was so like we played the Ryman. That room with no bodies in it is dwarfing. Like how
I'm
because
sure it's crazy.
it's just like a freaking ball. Like all the sound just redirects right back to you. So um everything just it just feels cavernous when you're in there with nothing with nobody else in there. And then as soon as you walk out on stage, it felt like perfect, like exactly how it needed to be. And it's just the weirdest thing. And like we played a venue in Chattanooga called the Signal. I think it was the Signal. Um, it was a cool spot, but it was like your generic like big warehouse building with
Oh,
with like rafters, but it was like a 20 maybe 18 to 2,000 like 1,800 to 2,000 cap. So it had like secondary balcony around the top, but generic big warehouse type deal.
concrete vibes.
Yeah. Big like big mid-tier metalcore band energy.
Hell right, brother.
Yeah, hell right, brother. But it was cool. But like even that one was like even wonkier because it's just shooting
Yeah,
everywhere,
dude. Concrete, concrete and sound don't really like each other.
which is crazy that like a lot of the venues are just straight up concrete floors, walls, whatever. Um, but yeah, I it is dumb to say, but also it's like yeah, let the people get in the room and it will change drastically.
Yeah, like I don't know. I feel like where I started out, I was always trying to like make it sound perfect in an empty room. And then by the time the show started, I was like missing so much impact and clarity because I had like cut all of the things that were sucking at the time. And now those things don't exist and they actually need to be able to like get through the crowd. So,
Mm-hmm.
like learning when to like enough is enough. If I hear it now and it sounds like this, it will be fine when the show starts. And if I need to make any adjustments, I have, give me 30 seconds on the first song, tweak, 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 and we're rocking and rolling.
Yeah. Dude, something I would like to ask you about too. I've been doing a lot of live post mixing. So like church stuff or live albums or that kind of stuff like for stream or for whatever and they're like they want it to sound like a live record, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um I would love to know your thoughts on like if you were prepping to record some of that kind of stuff, like what in your mind would be like, oh, the go-tos for a lot of that kind of thing, like things that you don't normally think about as like a front
Uh,
of house engineer.
I mean, if you're doing any sort of post mix for a show, I think it's always important to have some sort of ambience mics, like for
Hmm.
the crowd. Like live recordings feel so stale without actually having the ambience of the room in there.
Well placed ambience mics, because I have a church
For,
that sends me stuff right now, and the mics are not well placed.
they're not where they need to
They're
be.
not where they need to be, and like you get mostly because they're like too close to the front of the stage, and so you get too much of like a especially where the drums are, like if they're offset because they're not in the center, like you get more of the drums on one side than you do on the other side,
Oh,
or if you
got
have an
you.
acoustic on one side and not on the other side, you kind of get him a little bit more on one side, and so you don't get that like crowd interaction. One, two, you don't get like the full like room crush kind of feel off a
I was
mic
gonna
as
say,
well.
just put a. I mean, you could even just do a mono mic right from front of house,
Yeah.
and that'd be
Unfortunately,
great.
I'm not there physically, but
Uh, Understood.
yeah,
Are you
yeah.
able to make that suggestion to them though?
Yeah, I can. I'm going to. I've been doing some mixing stuff, some post mixing stuff for them since October, November, or something like that, and now I feel comfortable enough to start like making bigger suggestions on like, hey, let's move some stuff around here. Like their overheads are kind of whack. Um, their overheads are like somehow more shell than cymbal.
Are they actually overheads or are they underheads?
No, they're over. I've seen a picture of it. Yeah, somehow more shell than cymbal.
Interesting.
So
Maybe.
whenever I crush it to get it to be even, and he's not playing a shell, like the cymbals are just like so loud.
Whoa.
It's
That's
really weird, right?
that is pretty bizarre.
It
Something that I do live is like sidechain my overheads to my snare.
ooh,
So,
interesting.
um, yeah, not doing a bunch of gain reduction, but for
Just like a
me, it's
little
just
bit.
like you could pretty much hear some like cymbals are they're loud,
Yeah,
like you know what I
they
mean,
are.
and
They're kind of in everything on
yeah,
stage.
so for me, like what's important is like having the shells cut through, and the way that I do that, it's just like yeah, whenever that snare is being hit, I guess I prioritize the snare a little bit, but yeah, just like 2 dB gain reduction at most on the cymbals, just to allow like the
Just
shells to come through a little bit
crack a
more.
little bit more in the
Yeah,
overhead. Yeah. Do you feel like it makes room for the tom some too? Because generally, like if you're doing a snare thing, it might like precede like a tom fill or something like
yeah,
that. Do you feel
yeah.
like it kind of opens that space up too?
It does, and I've also like gotten past faders need to be at unity, and like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's cool to have the toms a little hot, and like it
Mm-hmm.
sounds sick.
Especially, I
Um,
feel like with beach weather music, they do a lot of tom driven songs sometimes.
I mean, like a lot of their music is very like drum and bass
Mm-hmm.
and like track heavy. Um, so I enjoy giving everything the the space that I think it needs. I do like a little kick and bass side chaining on that
Mm-hmm.
on those mixes, and also like sub bass in playback is being side chained to the kick as well because I always want the kick to
Mm-hmm.
be. You need to hear that kick.
Oh
You need
yeah.
to hear the bass too, but just like literally a millisecond attack side chained and just like allow the kick to come through first, and then you can hear the bass like totally fine.
Oh yeah. Are you how many stems? So this is probably something that people that would be working in like a home studio environment would need to know is like providing artists certain things. With everybody that you've worked with, like what is the average like backing track stem count looking like?
Um, so for like more rock oriented bands with tracks, I usually see no more than 8 channels. It's usually like stereo instruments, mono sub track, mono percussion track, stereo backing tracks. And like sometimes the instrument tracks themselves are broken down to like, oh, these are like extra guitars or these are extra keys.
Gotcha.
And then with
What would quantify as like stereo backing track versus the other? Like backing vocals? Like BGVs?
that's what
Yeah.
I meant.
Okay.
Like backing vocals. Sorry.
Cool. I just want to make
Yeah.
sure. I want to make
I
sure that I was clear.
I didn't even, dude. I've been awake for
No,
like
I understand. But yeah,
26 hours, so
so
I'm sorry.
stereo backing vocal. So
Mhm.
mono bass, mono perk is interesting. I'm surprised that's not stereo.
Um, I I honestly don't know why would it need to be stereo.
I feel like, well, I guess it depends on the type of music. I guess if it's more rock music, it kind of doesn't matter. But, uh, and this, you said with more rock stuff, I guess. But like, I like having like big swooshes and stuff be like really wide and like get out of the way and like motion on like if I have any like hats that are trap hatty or something like that, like being able to move
Okay,
around.
so I definitely understand where you're getting at there. I guess in the way that I'm thinking about it, it's like it's usually like a tambourine or a
Okay.
shaker in
So
that
like more
track.
more normal more normal maybe like tam hits that add to the snare or like
Right.
snare accents or general like stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
More generic stuff.
Yeah. And then, it's like when you get into like more pop stuff where tracks are a big part of the show. Yeah, I don't think it's uncommon to see, anywhere between 12 and 16 channels. And that's just like individual instruments being
Mhm.
moved and allowing front of house to have, the most control rather than baking, you know, guitars and synths and keys into one stereo pair. They'll just break it out a little bit more.
So maybe comparing like Beach Weather to I don't know if Carter actually had that many tracks cuz I
So Carter's session was interesting. We didn't have that many tracks going to front of house just because I did not have enough IO to accommodate a full
gotcha.
breakout. However, like within the Ableton session, we were definitely like mixing um,
Mm.
a lot of elements. We did that in rehearsals. We were like, I only had, I think it was four four channels available for tracks, and it wound up being I was getting backing vocals, like background vocals, that was stereo, and then everything else was like mixed down in Ableton coming through a stereo instrument channel.
Nice.
So that was a little different, and next go around I will have the proper amount of IO with
Yeah.
me to be
Yeah,
able
yeah.
to accommodate the full breakout.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that was just a little bit of trial and error in rehearsals, and I mean even like doing during shows, like play back the next day, listen to what was going on, talk to Reed who plays bass and like manages the playback for Carter, and we would just make adjustments. And we finally got to a point where we were like, okay, the balance that we have within this session is cool. Like I can just have the stereo channel and it'll be fine. But in a perfect world where I prepared 100% properly,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Was
would
it
have had a
different? It was
perfect time.
also kind of that scenario was also different for you too, because it was kind of like you were coming off of one flying. Because I even think I remember you being like, "Yeah, I'm flying to LA and I'm dropping off my stuff at Carter's house, and then I'm flying home for like 3 days, and then I'm going right back to
Dude,
LA."
yeah, like big time. I was like,
It was
I
very
was dropping
rushed.
off. I was dropping off stuff from Brittany Spencer's tour.
Yep.
We rented it from SIR in Hollywood, and Carter lives not very far from that location. And I called him up and I was like, hey, instead of me spending your money to fly my gear twice, can I just leave it at your place? And he was super nice. And he said yes. And that was very
What a
kind of
homie.
him.
The
I love that guy.
beginning of the homie relationship, dude.
Yeah, dude. Now he's doing Silk soy milk
Yeah.
advertisements.
Yeah, he is, dude.
He's
I
crushing it.
he's he's so funny, man. He's one of my favorite people to follow on the internet.
Yeah, dude.
Don't tell Shama.
Oh man.
Yeah, but no, yeah, he's too good, dude. But yeah, it is interesting that he plays. I think I've seen video, but he plays like full band live.
Yeah, it's a four-piece keys. He plays guitar and sings. Bass sings. The key player sings, and then young Garrett on drums holding it down.
Yeah, dude.
They're a good squad.
Good group of boys.
Oh yeah, big time.
Good group of boys. But so maybe not Carter because Carter was more specific. But then like Beach Weather versus that one guy that the very pop guy that Alexander.
Alexander Stewart.
Yeah, Alexander Stewart would probably be more of a better like counter example.
Yeah, that was definitely there was a lot of playback there. If I remember correctly, uh, we did have stereo drums on that, and that was because there was like percussion tracks happening, plus also the SPD was being triggered through that same line. Um, and it had like some effects and stuff like that that needed to be stereo. We had synth stereo, we had keys stereo, we had guitars stereo, backing vocals stereo. There was a lot of stuff going on in that one.
Yeah, geez.
And
how many people were on stage for that one?
That was a 3-piece. That was Brittany playing drums, and then Alexander singing his ass off. It sounded like a fucking star all the time.
Absolute angel.
And then, dude, such a great voice.
Yeah, dude.
And then Flynn, who was playing, he was the MD, so he was like handling all of the track stuff, and he played keys and acoustic and electric guitar.
Oh, so he's the multi guy too.
Yeah, he is a multi guy. I feel like the multi guy is like a popular position in the pop world. Even the tour that I just got off of, Celia, she played bass, electric, and keys, and did a little bit of singing, and she crushed it every night.
Nice.
Super talented.
The multi guy for Dylan's band played keys, guitar, banjo, and sang every night. And I think he also he helped with like transitional things, so he would sing like other lines and things like that. It was very interesting to see one dude be like, all right, I'm just gonna. I think he also played lap steel the previous tour, but that was too much for them to travel with.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was like, my gosh, man. But those country dudes, they always have like one dude that plays like 7 things, and he just like depending on the song, just like roams around and like picks out what he's gonna do for that song.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of cool. If I were on the stage, I feel like I would want to be
that person,
that guy. Yeah, I want to be that guy.
Yeah, for sure. But that honestly, that's probably what I would be too. That ends up being what I end up being most of the time. Is like, what do you need? Put me there and put me on BGVs.
Yeah, put me in, coach.
put me in, coach. Just put me somewhere and put me on BGVs, and I'll probably be fine. So, all right, so on those things, maybe mixing versus, let's keep those 2 examples, Alexander versus beach weather. What are some things that you find doing differently on a more track heavy thing versus like a more rock band kind of scenario? Obviously vocals are probably going to be a little different too. That would probably be the biggest thing, right?
So you're talking about like what the main vocal is sounding like, or how backing vocals are treated? I'm trying to understand the question.
Okay, so maybe I'll restate it in a better way. So like as a whole, as a mix as a whole, like how are you thinking about things differently between those 2 options that are pretty more extreme options, like treating the vocal differently between the 2? Is the vocal more inset versus out front, like that kind of stuff?
Yeah, understood. So like and maybe this is just like a me thing.
Okay.
I feel like in general, when people come to a show, like the vocal is what they want to hear. So I don't care if you're a rock band or a pop band or a metal band. Like I have learned to make everything pretty vocal forward. As far as tracks go, though, when I'm dealing with a band like Beach Weather, they want their sound to be more of like a rock band. So I'm adding the tracks kind of under what the actual instruments are doing. And then for Alexander, it's a very track forward mix where the instruments are like tucked slightly under the tracks.
Gotcha.
So yeah, and you know, I feel like that is going to vary from artist to artist. I just know that my beach weather guys, they have some sick guitar tones, and they
Oh
don't want
yeah.
that stuff to get lost in the playback.
No, and
So,
it's also
uh,
genre difference.
for sure,
Really, it's like Beach Weather is very much more of a rock band, pop rock, but they're very much still like a band. And then like Alexander's just doing his thing, and so they're there to see him kill it.
for sure, and I want him to be killing it at all times.
Exactly. So it's like less distraction, more consistency you can provide on the music side to just back his vocal up better.
Mhm.
It's kind of, and yeah, I guess that's kind of how I would think about it too. All right. So what? I know you try. You have a tendency to try wacky stuff. You sent me a thing that I tried on a mix in the studio, and it worked out pretty well. Which was like the, oh god, like the mid, wide, low, high thing that you were doing at that point. This was like a couple years ago.
We're talking about the 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 side chaining vocal to an instrument group thing.
No, it was, oh shoot, what was it? It was, I tried it on a mix, and it was like drums,
Yeah,
mid information. Hold on, I need to pull
yeah,
up a mix.
yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah.
talking about?
It's yeah. So that's like the
Like
dry,
mid
the
center
duck.
and mid wide or something like that. Yes, that one. That's what it
Yeah.
was.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Um, Obviously, I don't expect you to still be doing that, but are you doing any other kind of wacky thing now?
Well,
Have you
I
tried any
still
other way?
I still be doing that.
You still be doing that?
Um, yeah, dude. I think if like just for the sake of consistency, I feel like at the base level, arranging my mix like that for live is really great.
Why don't you because I don't even remember if we talked about that in the last podcast. I think you may have figured that out like after that, maybe. Um in the last podcast episode that we did together, but why don't you explain it? Because you explained it to me, and I tried it on a studio mix, and I thought it worked pretty well as like a way to set up a mix.
Cool.
So,
Yeah. So I sort of just like I break everything out into like the zone that the sound occupies, if you will. And uh, so like I have a group that has like all of my drum shells and also includes like bass and like sub tracks. And I tend to like compress all that stuff together and EQ that stuff all together because bass and drums go together in my head.
mhm.
And then I have another group that is full of content that has like a lot of high mid information that you need to sort of go through keys, guitars, synths, ambiances, whatever the case may be. It all just depends on the genre. And then I have a vocal group, obviously with all of my vocals in it, all getting compressed together. And with that second group that I was talking about, it's called the duck group. And what I do is all of that stuff that has high mid information that tends to fight with the same high mid information in a vocal, I actually have that group being sidechained by that vocal. So whenever the vocal comes through, I make it kind of frequency specific. So wherever like the nice presence range is in the vocal, I want that to dip out of the duck track. So the vocal always stays in front, and you're never fighting for the clarity of the vocal against the instruments. And it's something that I've been doing for a little while, and it's something that I will continue to do, I think, until I find a better way to
Yeah,
to do what I'm trying to do,
for
which is
sure.
just like make sure that when you come to a show that I'm doing, you can hear the singer. I just
Yeah.
think that's so important.
And I feel like if you're coming from rock or heavy music, that tends to be like a secondary thought.
it's a little overlooked sometimes. I know, like, I mean, I'm guilty of it myself. You want your fucking drum mix to crush if you're doing a metal show.
Your guitars to just eat people's
And you,
face.
yeah, right. And like, that's cool, but also you want all that stuff to happen and also still hear the vocal, I promise you.
Yeah. Well, people are there to hear the lyrics, theoretically,
Yeah,
right?
theoretically, yes. Unless you're like Animals as Leaders, where it's just, they're,
But there's no
like
vocals
just
anyway.
all instruments.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what that's the
That's
point.
the point. Yeah.
But yeah,
Exactly.
um, people want to hear uh, the screams sounding sick and the clean lyrics sounding beautiful.
Yeah.
But they still want to have like the bite of the guitars and like the punch of the drums and the crack and all that stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, like in general, I feel like that's a really solid way in the live world to just get something that's like, you don't lose the vocals, you don't lose the instruments, everything's kind of there, and they're like kind of working with each other, and you're not fighting the areas that tend to be a little problematic.
Yeah.
It's like,
I think it's a really good idea. Like I said, I tried it in a studio scenario and I thought it worked really well. I think I even sent it to you. And like I thought it worked pretty well. But I think the thing I just like coming into it from a studio perspective was just like it's a lot of routing to
oh, for sure.
like mess with like for new sessions, which was kind of weird. So what I did a version of it that was essentially treat it like an all instrument bus, but then have like this, because I am in a studio scenario, I can use something like Soothe and be a little more specific, targeted with things per
Hmm.
channel, and do it by instrument buses rather than like an all instrument thing. So I use the instrument bus to compress everything together, do like a teeny tiny bit of it, base everything on the vocal bus into the side chained off of the instrument bus, and then do more of the side chain on like the guitar bus, or the synth bus that is wide, or like the high synth bus or something like that. So kind of like a version of it that's a little
Yeah,
more friendly with studio stuff. But I did take your idea and like modify it basically for studio
cool.
work, and I think it works really good. It makes it almost work more like if you're thinking of it like if you're a rapper and you just rip a beat off YouTube and you just have the 2-track and you're trying to fit the vocal into the 2-track.
Dude,
It's kind of what it makes me think of.
I mean, yeah, the way that you're explaining it, that's probably like the easiest way to think about it. But yeah, it's just like, yeah, that's actually perfect. That's what I'm doing. I'm ripping beats off YouTube Live, baby.
People
Um,
are just playing to backing tracks of YouTube, even though they're not.
yeah, no, but yeah, I mean, you're right. It's literally just like, how do I get my vocal to fit in this mix? And it's like, earlier on, I was like, I've been taking the less is more approach, and like, my thought as an engineer is most of these artists that I'm working with, actually not even most of them, all of them, like their tones are intentional. The
Mm-hmm.
sounds that they're using are intentional. And like, instead of me carving things up to fit the way that like I think they should be, I'm just taking the pieces that they have and sort of fitting them together the way that they are, but in a way that like allows you to hear all of the different elements without you having to, you know, necessarily. I don't know. Sometimes I'm at a show and like,
Like,
you could look at it. You could look at
yeah,
a guitarist, but you can't like hear what the guitarist is doing,
yeah, it just sounds like
whatever. Like,
walls of noise.
yeah, like that bums me out. I don't like that. So
Yeah,
yeah, I guess
well, and you're not I think the analogy I would probably say is you're like taking the puzzle pieces given to you and then fitting them together the best you can instead of taking the puzzle pieces given to you and cutting them up to make a new puzzle. And it is
For sure. Yeah, it's like
instead of cutting them into just squares that line up that like kind of line up to a weird version of the puzzle that doesn't actually make sense, you're just like working it out in your own way and
yeah,
shaving a little bit here and there.
all of the pieces are there. So I shouldn't have to do a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo
Yeah.
to be able to make it work. So yeah, I just try to be like very thoughtful with my EQ moves, and like even if I were to like pull up a session on the console, people usually look at my drums and are like, "How are you making your drums sound like this?" And they'll look at my channel and be like, "You only have one little cut." It's like, that's all I needed.
Sure. And I think I was talking with somebody else about this, and like we were discussing also the opposite idea, which is like, which I know you do sometimes too. It's like sometimes you just got to do a massive, like, weird thing. And then sometimes you don't.
Yeah, and I mean that's totally true. There's definitely not a one size fits all option when it comes to music at all. So it's like if you're listening to this, uh, please don't take it as gospel. It's just like what I've
Yeah.
sort of found doing this stuff. If you're intentional with the source tone, you more than likely don't have to do a whole hell of a lot to like make it fit
Yeah. Well,
into
I think
the mix.
that's true for studio too, right? It's
Yeah,
like if your source tone is good, your vocal take is great, you've done the best job to make the performance and the sound that you're trying to get as good as possible. It's like you kind of don't have to do a whole lot,
for sure.
really. Um, honestly, working and mixing and tracking a ton of country artists have like made me really realize like the power of just good players on a track. Uh,
Dude, big time.
it's crazy. It's crazy like how easily stuff comes together when it's like, oh yeah, this just works. And it was all super intentional. Um, but yeah, I would love to hear your view on, something that we use more in the studio world is a lot of outboard gear sometimes. What have you dipped into that on the live side?
Oh yeah,
And
the
also for people that are maybe on the lower end of touring, is it something that you think should be thought about?
um short answer, no.
Yeah.
Like I feel like everybody should be comfortable creating like a very clean, solid sounding mix with all the tools that you have available on desk. Like pretty much all digital desks uh, are extremely capable of creating like a nice polished sound. To varying degrees, it's like I spent plenty of time on M32s, and you could do a lot on those desks
Yep.
and make things sound great. And I've been spending a lot of time on like DLive recently, and there's like even more tools available. So really, it's like the hardware that I'm using is more for like character and just like stuff that the desk itself doesn't have. Like I love DLive's workflow. I think that they're super easy to get like a very clean, full sounding mix, but I also do feel like they lack a little bit of character. And to help conquer that, because I come from like Midas Pro boards that just have like a great sound to them.
Tons of
I've
character.
Dude, yeah, they're awesome sounding desks. Super weird workflow, but if you can get beyond
Yeah.
that, they sound great. Um, I'm a huge fan of the Portico, the Neve Portico
Hmm.
on my master bus. When I'm on the road, I usually have like a Fatso with me, and I'll kind of put that wherever I feel like it will be the most useful. Sometimes it's on drums, sometimes it's on tracks, sometimes it's on cymbals. Really just depends on where I feel the vibe needs to come from. Another piece of gear that is always with me is the Neve 5045. It's like a very transparent expander, and it's just like something that allows your vocal to be like very present in the mix, while also squashing stage bleed, like from cymbals or
Really?
stuff like
That's
that.
interesting.
Yeah, I love that thing. It's like a magic box for vocals, and like just allows you to get like uh, a much cleaner vocal live. And yeah, I don't like being on the road without it. Um, what else? I've been getting into using the Shelford channel
Mm-hmm.
vocal. You know, it's like great vocal strip, EQ, compression, um, and you know, it has like this nice warm sound. I'm a big fan of like the mid range. I like mid harmonics. Like
You
I
like
just
the
feel like
Neve sound.
sounds great,
Yeah,
dude.
it
You
just sounds
know,
good.
it sounds solid. And then, you know, it's like I'll even dabble in waves sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And usually that stuff is just it's not really for character or anything. I mean, sometimes it's like, oh, I'll throw an 1176 on here because I can. Usually it's like another kind of noise gate, or I'm using vocal rider if I have like a vocalist that is soft, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like using it as an expander basically,
Yeah.
um, stuff like that. But you know, like I definitely encourage people to try those things as soon as you are like comfortable delivering like consistent, solid mixes without them, because um, yeah, I feel like it's easy to get lost
Mm-hmm.
in tweaking knobs on outboard gear if you don't have like the core of the mix set up properly. But like I can still do shows without them, and I have
Yeah.
done shows without the gear, and it's been fine. But I've always been like, you know, there are some shows where I'm like, oh man, I really do wish I had just like this gooey, warm thing
Yeah.
happening that some of these sets just don't have.
Yeah.
You know,
No, I get it. The 5045 sounds sick, actually. I need to check that out. That sounds really dope.
dude, yeah, it's super great. Um, definitely recommend for anybody on the road. At first, I was like, man, $2,000 for this thing kind of doesn't seem dope. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's an expander, so it's not like it's not adding
It's not a
any.
sexy choice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not like, ooh, I got this like super dope tube compressor that just, you know, but it's one of those things where it's like you insert it in the chain, and like immediately you're able to do more with your vocal than you have been able to do in the past, because you know sometimes it's like if if you're like a, I mean, I like boosting 8K on vocals live.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that and there's a bunch of cymbals,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
doesn't sound very good.
Doesn't mesh well. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, if you have something taking that away, suddenly that boost now is like very pleasant and
Mm-hmm.
sounds nice. So
No, that's really sick. The I don't think I told you this. You mentioned the Shelford channel. Uh, the Newton channel, like the step below that, we got,
super sick.
dude, they're so sick. The studio build that at here in Greenville that we worked out of, that I work out of, we did a studio build of 16 channels of that as our end.
Perfect.
16 channels of the Newton channel is our on the way in tracking. Like we just use that instead of a console.
Yeah, I
because
mean,
it's basically the same as a console, except I think it ends up being cheaper overall, and it's easier to fix.
for sure.
Um,
Especially if it's just like one unit, pull
yeah,
it
it's just
out,
one unit. You just
whatever.
pull
Yeah,
it out and just replace it. And I think the flexibility, I think you get more flexibility because you can do more like in and out stuff, which is kind of nice. You EQ per channel, compressor per channel. You get that like oh,
you
what
got
is it?
silk.
The silk knob? Yeah, red
Yep.
blue silk knob on each channel. So, bro, for drums, crazy.
Oh yeah.
Crazy. I love it. I actually think that most people that are in the earlier states, if you're in the earlier states of studio land, you know, and even live land, honestly, and you're like, I want to dabble, those are like 2 grand, I want to say, something like that.
I think you're right. Yeah.
They're a great vocal channel strip. Incredible, good on vocals, good on guitars, great on bass. If you're just gonna get one, like they're really really good for like those kind of myriad of options, especially if you like the mid saturation like Neve kind of sound, which I know you do. Uh, it's it's kind of gangbuster for 2 grand, dude. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, this video is not sponsored by me. We're
No,
just fanboys.
we about to say we just love it. That's actually one of the things I want to get next is some sort of like Neve channel strippy or Neve preamp kind of deal for my room. Right now I just have the Avalon, but I do love it.
Very, very solid,
Very
classic
solid. I
choice.
know. I'm a classy kind of guy, man. What can I say? Uh, so maybe the last thing let's talk about, and you mentioned this before in the previous episode, but I'm sure your opinions on it have changed now. Uh, I think live as an option for people going from studio to live might be a really good career choice. It was for you, obviously. Uh, and not that you don't still do studio stuff. I'm sure you still like it's just different because you're not at home now. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
it is a little different, but I'm sure you still do some of the things and you were mastering for me for a really long time too. Um,
Yeah, and I'm still doing production,
yep.
still recording from time to time, just, a lot less frequently these days.
But
Um,
I would love to hear your opinion on like the state of it all because I think before you were like it's a great time to get in. There's a lot of open jobs. We actually need a lot more mix engineers and people on the road in general. I don't know if that's changed. And then number two, what how you would consult somebody on like making that change.
so yeah, I mean, I still think that there's always going to be a need for people. I feel like the demand might be slightly less these days because like a lot of people did get in over the past couple of years. Um, but I mean, hell, there are offers that I can't take that happen at the same time that I'm already doing stuff. So if you know what's up and want to help me out,
Yeah.
helping out other people, let me know.
Yeah.
Um, I still think that for anybody doing audio, if you enjoy, because like some people don't like shows, like some people just enjoy being at their studio
Hmm.
doing the thing.
Which I
I,
totally
I
get.
understand it's a complete, yeah, I get it too. But like if you enjoy live music and want to be a part of that, I think now more than ever it's like people are coming into these jobs as front of house, whether you're on tour or working for a venue. It's like you want that stuff to sound like a professional recording. It's like that I'm always looking for that. I want people to come to a show and be like, what the hell did I just listen to?
Yeah.
But like that, with the tools that are available now, I feel like that's like it's something that's attainable. Um, so and I think that a lot of things that you learn in the studio like certainly do apply
Yeah.
to what's happening live.
You
And I
you
think
just do slightly different variations of them, but honestly, like even some of the tools are the same. You're talking about like using Waves plugins sometimes, or like using outboard gear. It's like at a level, it actually becomes a lot more of the same than it does different.
It's all sound. You know, the difference is like reproducing for earbuds and like small speakers versus doing the same thing but for a large room with larger boxes. And I think like if you are a nerd like I am, live sound is cool because like you get to like really start to understand like the physics behind what's going on. And for me, that was like a piece of the puzzle that was missing for a while. And it's like I've taken stuff that I've learned doing live stuff and brought it back to the studio, and like, wow, now studio mixes make a lot more sense to me just because of the knowledge that I've gained from doing it on the other side. So it all goes together. If you're curious and just like enjoy learning, highly recommend going to like your local venue, your local club or whatever, and like just seeing what's up and figuring it out.
That's how you got started.
That's literally what I did.
Yeah.
I had no idea what was going on, and I figured it out.
And in, let's see, what was it? It's been 4 years, right? 2021.
Yeah.
You're doing, you did in less than 4 years. You got it to where you were running front of house on multiple major tours and doing arenas, which is dope.
We out here trying, dude.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, and I will say, you put in way more work than most people, I think, because you did like, what was it? I think last year you told me you were on the road for, out of 365 days, you were on the road for like 340 of them.
It was, last year was crazy. The last couple of years have been pretty insane.
Yeah.
I don't recommend doing that.
No, be more balanced be more balanced than Chris. But
yes, 2025 is balanced as I can be. Me.
Yeah, about to say Chris is an extreme person. Whenever he gets into something, he is full force into it, and there is no stopping him.
That's definitely, it's like a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
I can't stand being bad at shit. So I just have to I need to get my reps in, man, and make sure that I'm halfway decent at what I do.
You sped run the 10,000 hour rule on front of house.
How else am I going to do it?
No, but it's true. If you want to get something really good, like get as many reps as you can. And then you did that by like not being at home for 2 years.
Yeah. Again, you know, that's a case by case basis.
I mean, sure. If you got it in you, go for it. But also, make sure you're getting paid appropriately. Also,
yeah, and make sure you're taking care of yourself too.
Yeah,
because that's super important. I'm starting to do that now, and it's great. Work-life balance is something that I have definitely struggled with for my entire life, and it's a struggle that gets a little bit easier every year. So one day I will win the work-life balance and have more life instead of work.
Well, it's good to see on the other side of all of the work that you actually are at a place where you can afford to do the work-life balance thing, which is a positive.
Big time. Yeah. Yes. I thank you. That's something that has been very important to me. And yeah, I'm finally in a spot where like there are like 4 different tours that I was like, I'm sorry, I am going to not do that. But thank you for thinking of me.
Let's go, dude. Well, Chris, once again, super pumped to have you on the podcast again, doing a little catch up, here's a snapshot of your life in that way. I think it's pretty cool. If people want to follow you or check out what you got going on, where do you want to send them?
Hit me up on Instagram. I am chess.wave, chess like the game, .wave like the file type. So that is where you can find me. And yeah, I'm happy to like answer. Just slide in my DMs. I got you. Yeah, we're all good.
It's big homie energy, dude. Gang.
You already know what it is.
You already know what it is. .family. Let's go.
Dude, thanks Thanks for hanging.
Yeah, bro. Always good to chat on the pod and everything. Go follow Chris. Say, hey, Chris, you need to put together some sort of thing for people that are getting started in this, so that I can tell people to go get that thing.
I will work on that tomorrow.
Yeah. All right. Cool. If we have it, it'll be in the description. If we don't have it, sorry. Talk to Chris about it. uh, but either way, we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for coming and hanging out later.